This clip is brought to you by SaveWithConrad.com.
Next up is something pretty special. See Tully Blanchard out, followed by Arn Anderson wearing the Horseman shirt, and right behind him, of course, James J. Dillon. They're going to be taking on the quote unquote hometown heroes, the Road Warriors. That's their kayfabe hometown. And Meltzer would note in the Observer, the reason the Roadies didn't enter to Iron Man and their entrance got a worse reaction than it ever had is because this was going on a video, and you can't use other artists' music on a video, which is for sale, but you can on free television if the artist doesn't complain. And he called this the best match on the card. He gave it 3.5 stars. And it's really hard to imagine that these guys could have a bad match in this era. I don't think there was many tag teams as good as Arn and Tully. And man, these guys, the Road Warriors, they created a response from the crowd that would become legendary and nicknamed the Road Warrior Pop. But without the theme music, it does lose a little bit of its luster, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, sure does. People were used to hearing Iron Man. And the Road Warriors were an attraction team. They were not an everyday, they're like a baseball pitcher. They're best utilized every 5 days type thing in theory, not literally, but in theory. And, but they were attractions, and they had to be worked, that skill set had to be worked around quite frankly. And so Arn and Tully were the perfect, adversaries for the Road Warriors, because Arn and Tully knew how to accentuate the strengths of Hawk and Animal and not expose their weaknesses. Their weaknesses meaning, catch hand wrestling type stuff. Their strengths were sell the hell out of their high impact moves, be able to take a slam and a clothesline, those type things, because that's what you're going to get. And Arn and Tully knew how to handle that and make their opponents look better than they may have been actually in reality. And I also think this combination worked because there was mutual respect. LOD with Paul Ellering, who I always had a great deal of respect for, still do, against the champions, Arn and Tully. There was a chemistry there that was created largely thanks to Arn and Tully's ability to work.
Right.
And to be unselfish. They may have, in a gleam in their eye, complained about it off camera, but which I've heard great stories from those guys about working with LOD and their Legion of Doom, whatever, Road Warriors. But they knew that they had the best matches with LOD than anybody in any territory. And I don't know that when the Road Warriors got to WWF that they had anybody there that could have the match with them that Arn and Tully had.
Right.
I believe that Arn and Tully were not afraid as characters. And they also called the match. That's another thing that fans got to remember. The heels called the match and the Road Warriors just executed. So all that calling of the match had to be earmarked with Road Warrior feel to it. Like right here where Hawk is walking out with Arn, Gorilla Slam. And of course, Arn now smartly rolls out of the ring to regroup, but they're going to put a little time in. There's no reason to rush things. And there again, it's called selling. Arn Anderson selling, to me, does not make him weak. It makes this more real.
Right.
And that's the idea. Suspend the disbelief. And that's what we're going to get with these guys. But you got to admit, Conrad, the Hawk and Animal in 1987, they looked amazing.
Oh my gosh. They look like they're right off of the big screen. I mean, they look like they're from a movie.
Well, that was one of the nicer things Ole did, create the Road Warriors. It was fun to listen to Jim Herd, your interview with Jim Herd. I encourage anybody that hasn't listened to Conrad, sit down with Jim Herd. You're missing something really, really good. Whether you liked Herd, you think you liked Herd, you think you didn't like Herd, you think he did this or did that, whatever is irrelevant. It's just a real cool piece of wrestling history. But, Hurd had a lot of interesting things to say about the Arn and Tully and the Road Warriors. Great piece of business, Conrad, as I said earlier.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate you digging it.
I loved it. I watched it twice. I don't watch anything twice. Unless it's Harry Ream's greatest hits.
By the way, how great was, listen, I know the quote unquote shoot interview, and that's not exactly the way I would classify this, but typically, people sort of know what they're signing up for. But how great of a job did our old pal Chris McDonald do on splicing in photos of people and adding some context so that with the visual presentation of what we're talking about.
Yeah. Big league, man. Look NFL films like.
That's awesome.
Really good stuff. And I saw too, where you dropped that, I didn't know you were recording my conversation with Hurd when you put him on the phone with me. I'm glad you did. Don't get me wrong. But that was a little peek behind the curtain that fans should get a kick out of. You had that on social. And, cause I had not heard that phone call either. Kind of cool.
It was just neat to see his face light up. I knew that I was with him and he had put you over so much and even talked about you so lovingly off air. I thought, you know what? I'm just going to call Jim and hand him my phone on speaker. And when I did, I'm glad that Dave Silva, our resident, jack of all trades, Bull Ramus, decided, you know what? I need to capture this. This is kind of history. And so then later he said, hey, did you know I recorded that phone call? And I said, what are you talking about? And he said, when JR was on the phone with, Jim Hurd. And I said, really? So ta-da, there we were. But I thought that was pretty cool to see two old pals catching up like that.
Yeah, it was fun. Hey, look, I got respect for my elders. I was raised right. He's 88 years old, folks. God almighty. Carry your grudges with you, for God's sakes. If that's what you want to do, if that makes your life happier, well, he did me wrong, I don't like him, then don't watch a goddamn thing. That's easy. How's that for a solution for your problem?
Hey, let me mention, we talked about Greensboro a lot here on this show. Greensboro did have wrestling this night. Unfortunately, it's not the main card. They did a closed circuit event in the arena, so you could still come watch the show on the big screen, but they did have some matches there. But it's at the Lakefront Arena, and instead of it being 20,000 fans, standing room only, it's 1,610 fans. And they saw Bugsy McGraw and Jimmy Valiant beat the Jive Tones in 7.5 minutes with a lot of blood. They saw Ron Simmons beat Johnny Ace with a flying shoulder block off the ropes in 4 minutes. They saw Sean Royal pin Killer Khalifa in 4 minutes and 11 seconds. And the main event was scheduled to be the Sheepherders defending their UWF tag belts against New Breed in a cage match. But both Chris Champion and the Cage were no shows. That's a real thing. So instead of there being a cage match, it was a regular match against Brad Armstrong and Tim Horner. And the fans who were there were pissed off, and they were even madder since the bout went 5.5 minutes before Horner got the flagpole. Ace had been using it and used it before the referee DQ'd him for it. They're supposed to have an hour of live matches before Starrcade, but it was so short that they had a 27-minute intermission before the show even started.
So bad administration. It's just not good.
They also
you don't treat your audience that way. Taking advantage of those loyal 1,600 people that were there on Thanksgiving, for God's sakes, to see a B card at best, then watch a television basically with your buddies on the big screen. Now we're getting all the traditional double team, power move, Road Warrior stuff. There you see, Tully making sure that he was near the rope so he didn't kick out to keep the Road Warrior strong. Little subtle things like that, where he was just able to put his foot on the rope, stop the count. Of course, Tommy Young is the referee in this match. Hardly the best to ever do it. Hey, another thing about referees, the Mike Chioda stuff on ad free is good.
Oh, thanks, man. We just had a conversation last week with him where we talked about unions, and we talked about the way he and Tony Chimmel and a member of the ring crew that some of our fans may not be familiar with his name, and so many others, including Mark Eaton, had been with the company for more than 3 decades, more than 30 years. And the Mark Eaton firing story, which I don't think is out there until Mike shared it, is just something else. And he told the full Hebner story too about why their tenure came to an end with the company. It's really a unique perspective at the inner workings of WWE and how maybe the company has changed over the course of the last 30, 35 years.
Yes, it may have changed. It has changed. And, and all under the name of, we're a publicly traded company. Well, because you're a publicly traded company doesn't mean to treat people like shit. There's nowhere in the publicly traded company manual does it say, and now because you're publicly traded, you can treat people like dog shit. It's not that. Still got to be a people company. And those guys you mentioned, Chimmel and Yeaton, they were loyal. They did their jobs very well. And not for the massive money that, it wasn't just the money. They were making a living and providing for their families. But they were just very, very loyal. None of those guys ever worked for me. They worked in the operations area. So, but I saw them on every TV. I consider them friends. And I felt badly for the way they departed the company. It should have been a little bit more ceremonial. It should have been more feel good, because you're letting people go that have been with you for, like you said, Conrad, 30 years.
The Eaton story, he's in a production meeting and they come pull him out and fire him, tell him to get his shit and get out. And they don't explain why he's being asked to leave or what's going on. And everybody went home the next day. They didn't just let him go home and then make the call. It was like a public humiliation thing. And I don't know that. And even the fact that Kyoto, I think he's been there more than 35 years. When he was let go, no call. He didn't talk to Vince. He didn't talk to Linda. He didn't talk to Stephanie. Just, you're out of here. It's weird, man.
Yeah. Egos and a lack of common sense on how to manage people. Sometimes the people that come from our wrestling world are not the greatest administrators. It's that power thing. I've seen it happen time and time again. And I think maybe I've been guilty of it too. And that is, you're from the old school, you got in, you didn't make any money. And then all of a sudden you're with this big time company, the biggest, and you're an administrator. And sometimes that goes to your head. Nice DDT by Arn. Arn set up to make sure that Hawk could power out and again get his strength over. Going right back to what brought you to the dance. A quick tag with Tully. Arn and Tully were just so damn good. Hawk just attempted the only wrestling move he knew, an inside cradle, and got blotched. When you got the Road Warriors off their feet, it was a good storytelling for Shivani and me, because that's what you want to do. You want to pick and get and take down and things. But when you destroy the vertical base of powerhouses, they're not nearly as strong lying on their back. That's just logical. So, and now they isolate a body part. Imagine that. And thus far in this match, which I'm very disappointed, there's not been one leg slap.
I love watching Arn and Tully. The little things that Arn did in this era, I couldn't appreciate. I was a little kid, but you go back and you watch it, dude, they were making music in there.
Oh yeah. They were just brilliant. They understood the big concept. It wasn't about getting, like Mickey James said on Busted Open, it wasn't about getting the match over. It's about getting me over. And they wanted to get the match over. The presentation that they were involved in. These fans are so uninhibited.
Yeah, they're fired up. It's fun to look at the crowd too in this era, because this is before the sign era. This is before anyone had cell phones. All eyes are on the ring here. And I got to tell you, I know Vince would certainly have a different approach. I like the lighting presentation. This was more simplistic, more old school, more boxing like maybe, but I know Vince wants to light the crowd. Let's see everybody. But this brings your attention to what matters the most, the stage in the middle.
I think Vince wants to see everybody, without a doubt. You're right. But I also think that he wanted to be different.
Right.
And the traditional way that boxing and pro wrestling were videoed, where the crowd is essentially darkened and the solo focus is on the ring, which is the stage, which is where the performers are. I always love this scenario. The lighting the whole crowd was just, that's a McMahon thing. And there's nothing wrong. Hey, look, he's a billionaire, for God's sakes. So how wrong is it? It's not wrong. It's different. But I like, if you're asking for the style, I like this better. You can still see the crowd in the background. Then when I always said that when the house lights went up, like they would go up in Tulsa, then you saw all the people. It's another view. It's another vision. So I like this lighting. It focuses on the stars, and the stars, even though the fans are stars, then that's not who the people are paying to see. They're paying to see these dudes. That doomsday device should do it. I guess Arn's going to do the favor again. And he does. And the LOD comes home to the Windy City, and much to the delight of the 8,000 and change that are here, the Road Warriors are the tag team champions.
I mean, you want to talk about sending fans home happy. The Road Warriors were so over, and this is their quote unquote kayfabe hometown. This is really, really cool. New tag champs. And next up, we've got Dusty Rhodes going to be working with Lex Luger. Oh, and look at there.
Who's that long-haired photographer? They're reversing the decision. This is not cool.
Yeah.
You made them happy. You got them as high as you can get them.
It became, oh, there you see the big bump from Tully. Out goes Tommy Rich
Young
to the floor. Tommy Young, my apologies.
Arn over the top rope. That's a disqualification, by the way. It's not now.
Meltzer would say, basically a very solid match. The finish saw Tommy Young take his referee bump, Animal throw Arn over the top ropes. Referee Earl Hebner came to the ring and counted the fall on Arn as they did the clothesline off the top rope on him. Is there anyone in the world who wants to take that finish? They should have retired it a long time ago, let alone brought it out for one of the biggest cards of the year. I realize the problems inherent in letting the roadies have the belts. However, this was the time to do it. 3.5 stars.
Hey, it's Conrad Thompson. Thanks for checking out the podcast here on YouTube. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell so you get a notice anytime we upload some new content. And go save yourself some money right now. If you're in a 30-year loan or you have credit card debt, it's not a matter of if I can save you money. It's a matter of how much. Find out right now for free at SaveWithConrad.com.